Marc Stein covers the NBA for the New York Times. He's been covering the NBA since 1994, and I wanted to have him on because he gave me, well, the headline writer at the New York Times gave me the headline, the NBA's $500 million hope for the holidays, as we're not sure when the season is going to start, and Marc kind enough to join us. So what's at stake here? What's in play for this decision, and when do you think this decision happens, Marc?
I think we're going to get it this week, and I think we're going to get the pre-Christmas start. There are obviously, naturally, a few teams that don't want to start that quick, with the Lakers at the top of the list. But because the NBA has been trying to convince the players that at least $500 million is at stake if the start isn't closer to Christmas, and I think they're succeeding in that effort. That revenue that's at stake is what's going to drive this thing and what's going to get the season started way sooner than any of us thought when we were in the bubble. In the bubble, people were saying it could be February, it could be March, but I think we will find out this week that it is starting Christmas week.
But if I look at the rank and file, I don't know, does this come down to a vote, Marc? How did they decide if they're going to play December 22nd or they're going to play January 13th?
Theoretically, it comes down to a vote, but as we saw before the restart, if form holds, the union will just have player reps vote. That's the way they did it when they decided to restart the season. Unless the union unexpectedly breaks form, it's going to be a vote of 30 player reps as opposed to 450 players. So basically, union officials and player reps, they're spending this week, talking to players, kind of giving them a chance to voice their opposition. But more and more I hear that I think players understand that with this kind of money on the line, how much money they would lose waiting until January. It would be a shock if it's not Christmas week. So I think we're going to get it's going to be crazy. NBA draft on November 18th. Free agency is going to be 48 to 72 hours. It'll start that quick after the draft. And by December 1, teams are going to be in training camp.
Wow. What if LeBron says, I don't want to play the first month?
That would be, look, if anybody has the juice to pull that off, it's him. I don't want to jump in his head and try to predict it. I mean, I think if you really study it, he voiced opposition initially to, I'm not playing if there's no fans, and he changed his position on that. He initially was, in late August after the Bucks staged their walkout of a playoff game, LeBron, he said it the other night on HBO, he gave serious thought to ending his bubble time right there and changed his mind then. And, with time, will he say, you know what, I'm going to play on Christmas? Only he knows. But that alone will not, I don't think LeBron alone could stop this season from starting on Christmas. I just feel like there's too much momentum behind it now.
Are we looking at regionalized bubbles? Or are we done with bubbles completely for this upcoming season?
No, we're not. We're going to see. It's going to be everything you just talked about. The NFL. I think the NBA is going to be dealing with the same thing. Nobody wants to do bubbles again. Teams want to play in their home markets. So I think what we're going to see, again, nothing is firm yet, but I think what we're going to see is teams in their home markets, and the coronavirus will start to infiltrate the NBA like baseball had to deal with, like the NFL is dealing with now, like so many top teams in international soccer are dealing with. I don't think there's any way around it if teams want to play in their markets. But the appetite for doing the bubble again is pretty close to zero.
James Harden available? Is he on the market?
No,
Okay.
Not yet. Teams are monitoring for sure. Teams are curious because, all indications were that the two candidates that James Harden would have supported the most would have been either Ty Lue, who went to the Clippers, or John Lucas, who's been on Mike D'Antoni's staff the past 4 seasons and is really popular in that Houston locker room. Obviously, neither of those guys got the job in Houston. I think Houston made a good choice in very difficult circumstances. Steven Silas is as highly regarded as an assistant coach can be in this league. He's been at it for 2 decades, well regarded for his offensive mind, and everywhere he's been, just incredibly well-liked. Just one of the most well-liked people in the NBA. So to walk into that situation, which, I mean, there's tension. Mike D'Antoni walked away. Daryl Morey walked away. The Rockets have little flexibility to change their team. They have a new GM in Rafael Stone, and now Steven Silas has to walk in there and get James Harden on board. That's not going to be easy. But go ahead. If you follow him, he's proven an ability to do that wherever he's been.
I'll let you go with this. It feels like people are sleeping on the Golden State Warriors, that Steph coming back, Clay coming back, you still have Draymond, you got a high draft pick here. Or am I missing out on something? Because when we talk about title contenders,
I'm right
there I would have thought Golden State would be right there with the Lakers.
Look, people don't want to say it, but I'll say it. I mean, the Lakers, hey, they took advantage, but the league was down this year. I mean, it was. It did. It was a factor in there. I mean, they obviously have the best duo in the league. LeBron and Anthony Davis, they are the number one duo in the league, and no one can touch that. But the supporting cast was spotty.
Yeah.
And the competition level just wasn't at the level that we've seen over the past 5 years that helped them. Look, the Warriors need size and athleticism. They do. You got to have that to counter Anthony Davis. But, I'll take my chances with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson coming off so much rest, Draymond Green coming back. Let's see what they can do with Wiggins. They've got some trade assets to upgrade the roster. I totally agree with you.
Is there a hot draft pick? Because it feels like nobody wants to be drafting up high.
No, I mean, the reality is this draft, there is not a difference maker. And look, it's going to be way too soon to know. These kids come in so young now that there are always surprises. Donovan Mitchell's a classic case of a few years ago. He's nowhere near the number one pick, and look at the difference maker he became. I mean, so there's always the potential for surprise, but yeah, at the top of this draft, there's a lot of uncertainty, and Minnesota and Golden State, they hold the top 2 picks, and no one will be surprised if either one trades out of it.
Who's my guy, Denny Avdija?
Denny Avdija from Israel.
I hate to say I'm falling in like with him. I don't want to fall in love, but he's a lot of fun. Maybe this is Luka Doncic's spillover, Mark, but
no. Don't do that to the kid. That's too much. Don't put that on him.
He looks good. He's an interesting player. Here's
the thing. When you and I were young, this league was teeming with wing players, and every NBA team had them, and now they don't. And so that's why I think Avdija is he's a guy who's going to be able to play multiple positions, and he does have great potential, and he will not go lower than 6 or 7. I mean, he's probably going to go in that 3 to 6 range, but the Doncic comparisons don't help him because he's not going to have that kind of impact right off the bat. That's just too much to ask.
And LaMelo Ball, is he still hanging in there as the number one pick?
I would love to tell you I'm smart enough to tell you who will be the number one pick on November 18th, but I am not.
All right.
I am not.
That's fine. But I don't know. The only thing I've heard is that he's not good in interviews.
I don't pay much stock into that. I mean, the much bigger concern is, his shooting. I mean, this is, shot creators and wings who can play multiple positions. That's what teams want, guys who can make an impact with the ball. And certainly, LaMelo has the potential to run a team, flashy, passing. He's got all that size, but can he shoot it? I mean,
why the hell is it that his dad's this self-proclaimed basketball genius, but he's got 2 kids that can't shoot?
I mean, the same thing, look, my whole family's from Israel. I mean, I'm right there with you in the Avdija fan club. Why is he a sub 60% free throw shooter?
Yeah.
Why is shooting so hard? It shouldn't be. That should be the first thing you master. But we continue to, there is such a premium on shooting. I mean, look at where Duncan Robinson came from to where he ended up now because he is an elite shooter. I would be practicing that more than anything.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. We appreciate your time as always.
Sounds good, guys.
That's Marc Stein, covers the NBA for the New York Times.